So good morning, everybody, and welcome to our April meeting. Very nice to see so many smiling faces. And we have a wonderful program today generated by our own members. We're going to have Kate Steinel talking about flower propagation, and we'll have Joyce Hennessey talking about gophers and gopher problems and how to take care of them. And Pam Austin will talk about growing edibles, which is just sounds fantastic. So
22 people.
generally first we start with a little slideshow of things that you've sent me to share. So I'm going to start that first. And then any committee chairs or study group chair people or officers can think about any announcements that they want to make right after our little slideshow, which is pretty short this month. So welcome to everybody. And I'm going to start sharing our slideshow if I can get it together. Yeah. Let's see if that's going to work. Sorry, you'd think this would be so easy now that we've done it so many times. Doesn't seem to work that way. Let's see. Here we go. And let's have a screen. And let's present. Okay. All right. April, and oh, aren't we glad about the April rains finally? I hope we get more than just a little dribble. So
actually, it's really kind of wet out.
we love to get bouquets and arrangements, and of course, you know that in our regular in-person meetings, normally there are people assigned to every month to bring bouquets, one for the membership table and one for the refreshment table. And we've kind of fallen out of the habit of doing that lately. But I did get some bouquets, one from Gillis and Ruth from their garden. They are in Italy, so I don't think they're going to sign in today, but I appreciate their beautiful
Oh, you know,
aesthetic.
Kay Anderson is moving. She's the one that was in charge of the floral arrangements, you know, the sign up. She's moving to
Yes,
Arizona.
yes, that's right. So we're going to need a person to take over that assignment when we're back in in-person meetings. Thank you. So I got this beautiful Easter bouquet from Louise, and I like that little bunny. Thank you, Louise. That's very
Gorgeous, gorgeous. Yeah.
timely. And Sharda sent me this very lush, full of so many things bouquet. Beautiful, um, beautiful richness of all those different shapes and colors. Thank you, Sharda. Very, very nice. Oh, and I didn't notice this separate little vase with the iris. That's so pretty. And then Sharda also sent these photos from her garden. Beautiful array of things. I don't know what this pink flowering thing is. Sharda, can you say? Unmute yourself.
They are ranunculus.
I'm sorry, say again.
Ranunculus.
Oh,
Butterfly ranunculus.
The tall pink one is also a ranunculus? Oh.
Butterfly ranunculus.
Oh, thank you. I have not seen that before, only the short ones. Wow.
Yeah, just started this year.
Beautiful. Thank you, Sharda. That's really nice. And then
they look like plastic flowers.
Oh, yeah. Isn't that funny? And these are very beautiful too. A wonderful, tall things, beautiful height. Thank you for sharing those. Those are really colorful and great. And Carrie and Randy sent these, the incredible richness and variety of these pelargoniums, Carrie. So many different colors. I just love that. Several of those I would like to have actually. And then this cymbidium, I guess. Beautiful. And Carrie, you mentioned that you wanted to get a picture of your wisteria, but it just was too hot or something. So
We bragged about it at the flower group, and then when I went to, I guess it was too far gone in the heat wave.
oh,
It had
that's
funny,
all right. That's
bad
fine.
looking sections.
We will believe you that it was gorgeous, and these things certainly are too. Wonderful. And Bonnie McKenzie sent these Alstroemeria, which is amazing to me. Mine are far from blooming, so these seem quite early to me. But that's a nice color of Alstroemeria, beautiful rich color. And these are also from Bonnie McKenzie's garden. Spring is so full of color, isn't it? So thank you, Bonnie, for sending
That's very
those.
nice.
And then Marilyn, Joyce sent me a few different photos. This one was from her friend Chris, but the colors were so beautiful, I thought I would just put them in anyway. Maybe we could get Chris to join the garden club.
Is that how you spell Aloha? I'm thinking A-L.
So remember, everybody, if you're not muted, that we can hear all your conversations. So be a little bit conscious of that. And Marilyn sent these two arrangements that she had made for her patio lunches that she does with friends. And she told me this first one on the left has geraniums, salvia, and bulb leaves. Quite a nice combination. And the one on the right, pink jasmine, uriops, poppies, salvia, geranium, and rosemary. Wonderful combinations. Marilyn, you always put so many things in each one. It's really wonderful. Anna sent this of her gorgeous bearded iris and the ice plant, the Lampranthus. And Anna, I just want to say to everyone that when you cut a bud of an iris and put it in water, I wasn't sure if it would open, but it did. The bud you gave me opened beautifully after about 4 days. And so that was a nice surprise to have that beautiful iris in my bouquet. Ceci sent these amazing cactus. And Ceci, thank you for telling the names, the Latin names of them. I looked them up also because I really don't know these at all. Those are very small, aren't they? And the little blooms are just precious. They're just darling. Those are really fun. Noto cactus and epithelantha. Louise sent me this a wonderful purple bulb that blooms in her garden every year, and every year we forget the name of it. But Louise, I'm pretty sure this is it. Squill.
Thank you, Martha.
Mm-hmm. Because I remember looking it up last year, and then I remembered it was from Portugal, so I think that's what it is. Peru or Portugal, I don't know which, but there you go. Those are the names. And it's really a very rich color, isn't it? And then one of your wonderful roses and a close-up. That's just a great color. And the elusive Grady, Mr. Grady in the nasturtiums, very cute. And then your geranium in full bloom. It's wonderful. And what's the scent of that one, Louise? Maybe sort of rose scented or something, I think.
Has a lemon scent.
Oh, a lemon scented geranium. Nice. Beautiful. Great. Okay, and then Louise, as I mentioned at the very beginning, had gone to the Craneway Pavilion to the quilt show, and several other people in the group also went to that. And Mary Mashuda is here at the meeting in case we want to find out a little bit more. But it looks like Eileen Natoli, who I think is a neighbor, Mary, isn't she a neighbor and close friend?
Yes.
And she made these quilts, one of Roberta with her beautiful green glasses and one of Mary with her wonderful red glasses. Such
Oh,
a
the-
signature of the twins.
Yeah, and those will be in the show at Pacific International.
Okay. Oh, so please repeat that people have been asked to make quilts out of fabric.
Roberta designed fabric that was plaids and stripes that were hand woven in India in, I think, the 80s or the 90s for 13 years. And I have a big stash of the fabric. So there's going to be 50 quilts, small quilts, where people have come to the house and they've picked at least 3 of the fabrics that they have to use. And then they can put anything else with it.
Wow.
That's going to be absolutely wonderful, and we'll try to keep track of when that is and announce it maybe in the newsletter closer to the time. It's wonderful to see this tribute, and of course we really miss Roberta as a wonderful member.
Nobody gets our date right. Everywhere I look, it's wrong. We were born in 1940, so I don't know where they've just unaged me, which is wonderful. But
you're both you were so young at heart all the time. Nobody could believe the real date, maybe. Anyway, those are absolutely adorable with the glasses. And then this, I guess I understood, Louise, that this was one of the quilts honoring Roberta.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And he's a member of East Bay Heritage Quilters. And after we get through, I'll remember his name.
Okay, well, that doesn't matter.
I think his name Ryan?
Yes, Ryan O'Neill, I think is his name.
Oh, good.
Ryan's
Okay. And so these would be some of the fabrics that Roberta designed?
Yes.
Oh, so interesting.
The stripes.
That's lovely. Lovely. And then Louise, you also sent these. I don't think these are Roberta.
I didn't know. I didn't get the name of the quilter, but this was to represent California fire season, and I just thought it was so dynamic and so appropriate for our difficulties. The Dragon of Fire. And then there's one other I really wanted to share. So this one, the woman was in my writing group, and that's how I came to go to the quilt show. She gave us tickets to see it, and she called this compost colors. And so I thought it was so appropriate for our group that these are all the colors that she saw in their compost.
I love that. Yes, that's very appropriate. I think that seems great. Thanks so much for taking those, Louise. Oh, okay. And then I have this little video. I actually think I'll wait until the end to show it, but it's 5 minutes long, so I don't want to show it right now. But it's something that we could watch at the end if people are still with us. So that is our slideshow for today, and thank you so much to everyone who contributed. I love to see what's either happening in your gardens or what you want to share. It doesn't have to be in your own garden, but I think it's just great to share things, as again we would do in person by bringing stuff to the tables or yeah. Well, we miss being in person. So a few announcements first. Landry is not here today, so I'll act as program chair for just a second to talk about the May program, which you know is usually our garden tour month, our garden tour presentation. And in real life, pre-pandemic, we would be visiting 3 member gardens on one day, sort of carpooling from garden to garden and all touring the garden together. But in the video format, we're really able to see lots of gardens. We don't have to drive around. It actually works out pretty well. So if you want any part of your garden to be shown on the tour, please think about taking photos, or it could be even a little video, I think, um, of either just one little tiny part of your garden or just one special plant, or sort of show us what your whole garden looks like if you can. And then send me those, and you can start sending them anytime. You can take the pictures now, if now is when your garden looks the best. And we will have a photo tour of everybody's gardens who want to participate. Yes, Barbara.
I just want to show you my Easter egg tree. Can you hear me?
Yes, a little louder, please.
Okay. This is my Easter egg tree this year on cherry blossoms. And the eggs are made in blown out eggs from the 1960s. And these are the ones that I have managed to save. My children did them all. Some of them are broken, but I still hang them up. It's very sentimental to me. You can see.
I think that's a great idea, an Easter egg tree. I love it. That's good. Thank you so much. Thanks. So some reports from officers and committees. Dorothy, do you want to give us a treasurer's report, please?
As of the moment, we have a total of $13,049.01.
And 1 cent. Thank you, Dorothy. That's great.
Any questions?
Any questions about the treasury? Dorothy, I'm going to be giving you a receipt pretty soon because our Zoom membership has been renewed. I know that we hope to be more in person next year, but I think there will still be a use for Zoom, at least for the coming year. Maybe after that, we'll revisit and let it go. But I think that Zoom could be useful maybe for board meetings or whatever next year, even if we're meeting in person. So that is to come up. Let's hear from some committee reports. Louise, do you want to talk about Sundar Shadi and the deadline for nominations?
Yes. Sundar Shadi's deadline for nominations is tomorrow. I have about 18 gardens thus far, which is plenty to work with, but if any of you have some special garden you'd like to nominate, that's front yard, El Cerrito gardens only. Send me an email and I will put my email in the chat when I'm done here. But one of the things, we have lost 3 of our judges. So I'm looking for more volunteers. Marion who's been our wonderful, faithful judge, is having a hip operation. So we're going to miss her. And Linda is going to be traveling and Molly is busy. So I need a couple more judges. If anybody's interested in judging, let me know. Be happy to have especially new members who'd like to be judges. Anybody out there interested? Be happy to have you. So
it's a fun job, so don't decline it.
You just get to drive around and look at people's beautiful gardens and fill out a little form that I give you that tells you, gives you kind of some guidelines, and we'll rate those beautiful gardens that have been nominated. So at the moment I have Martha, Fong, Landry, who else is on that list? Oh, Bernadette, Lamerrill, and Clark. And any other volunteers that would like to drive around and look at gardens? To be looking at 18 to begin with, and then maybe down to 15. Anyway, let me know. And especially if you haven't done it before, it's really fun. Okay, that's it on the Sundar Shadi.
Thank you, Louise. I'll just add that fantastically our signs, which I think Tanya had
Oh.
made. The Sundar Shadi signs have been fantastically refurbished and polyurethaned or in some way sealed, so that they're going to last a long time, and they look really great. They look
And that was done
brand
by
new.
last year's Sundar Shadi winner, Maureen, and her husband, Les, I think his name is.
Mhm. Yeah, so that it was really wonderful that they did that. So
Yeah.
those signs are going to last a long time. Thank you, Louise. Thanks. Other committee reports?
Oh, I'd like to, can I, as long as I'm on, can I speak to the plant sale? Those of you who are bringing plants to my house, you can start anytime to bring them. And they can go behind my hedge. And probably if we have them by Thursday, it'd be great. But if not, Friday is obviously the last day. We'd hope that they're there before the sale. I wanted to thank Tanya for already giving me a bunch of beautiful succulents and an orchid. And Linda Raxel has brought a variety of objects for us, lots of pots and boxes, which I really needed. So I also recommend the other to Fong that you start gathering low boxes that people can put multiple plants in. That's very helpful.
Yeah, good. And thank you. We'll just go right into plant sale discussion
Yeah.
briefly then. I recommend that each location have a few big signs, one near right at the location that says in huge letters El Cerrito Garden Club. So your customers will know what the sale is all about and who to write a check to if necessary. And then a couple, maybe on either side of the house, down the block, so that people can find the location maybe that didn't know they were even looking for it. We also, I think, could use a few more volunteers. If you think you could volunteer just even an hour or two, either the day before the sale or during the actual sale, I'm sure that it would help to have somebody sitting at the cash table or to help with putting prices on things the day before. So please think about that and let one of the homeowners know if you can volunteer. Fong, what would you like
Yes,
to announce?
this is my first time hosting this, so I have a lot to learn. I like you guys to bring plants to my house, starting sometime next week. Just let me know. I'll put it in the garage, my garage, and I need a lot of help because I don't know what to do. I mean, I want. And then, you can bring me anytime starting next week, and you just let me know. I put in the garage, and then, so far I have Cece, Anna, and Shu Poi to help me before and on that day. But I wouldn't mind having some more if you could help me, and especially those who have experience. I already emailed my block association, and they are all eager waiting for that day. So hopefully, but you guys, and thank you so much for Tanya giving me a box of all the sign, the price, the color, so that helps. But I need a lot of directions. If you have something to help me with, just go ahead and tell me, text me, call me, whatever. Yeah.
Good. Thanks,
Mhm.
Fong.
Mhm.
Mandy, you're muted, Mandy. Just click on that little microphone next to your name. Or you can just hold down the space bar while you're talking.
What's Fong's address?
Oh, Fong's go ahead.
1311
Uh-huh.
Cairns, Kains.
Fabulous.
It's
Thank you.
between, yeah, it's in Berkeley. It's between Camellia
Uh-huh.
and Gilman.
Thank you, hon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Great, thanks, Mandy. And so, of course, anybody who's going to donate plants or tools, gardening books, garden art, pots, planters, or vases, that's what I can think of off the top of my head, should contact the individual homeowners, either Landry or Louise or Fong, to drop stuff off at their
Yeah.
house.
So
That
far,
would
I
be-
don't have anything like in books or, whatever. So pots,
you might.
everything is welcome.
Yeah. Well, that would be great. And thanks so much to everybody who's participating. And we'll probably send out something else just before. Great. And
If you
anything
don't,
else?
can I, Martha, if people don't know, click on the word chat and you will see my email address for Sundar Shadi and my home address for the plant sale.
Yes, well, chat is always very helpful. And of course, don't forget that all of us members have these little books, and all of our addresses and contact information is also in there. Thanks, Louise. Okay, so other committee reports or study group reports? Let's go to study groups. Oh, membership. Let's talk about membership. So, Jean, you're muted. Unmute yourself.
Yep, unmuted. I wanted to thank everybody that submitted their membership already. We've gotten maybe 25 or so, which is probably a quarter of the people. So check your boxes and mail the $30 and we'll get it taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. That's really good. That's great that you've already gotten so many responses. Just a reminder that we normally have a deadline in June. If you haven't renewed by then you might not appear in next year's contact list yearbook. So please do it in a timely manner. Send your check to Jean. Thank you, Jean. That's great.
Yeah, make sure that the check is made out to El Cerrito Garden Club also, please.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. That's great. Okay.
Martha,
Mary.
I, for some reason, the email that's in the book or whatever doesn't always work. So I want to tell people that my email is marymashuta@yahoo.com. So
Thank you, Mary. Yes. So
MASHUTA, Mashuta.
right. So the email in the yearbook is not reliable.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Very good.
Thank you.
Dorothy.
Also, besides making the checks out to the El Cerrito Garden Club, they should be for $30. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, that's an important point also. Good. Okay. Let's talk about study groups. Kate, want to announce about flowers?
The flower group for later this month, the third Wednesday, 10 o'clock, we're going to be meeting at Blake Garden. It is open to everyone, not just flower group people. If anyone would like to carpool, we can meet at my house. I can take 4 people, and we will go on the upper end off Rincon Road, because some people have mentioned a little mobility issue. So there shouldn't be if we go in from the upper side. And then people are free to kind of tour on their own and see as much or as little as they wish. So I'm hoping people will join us. It might be handy if you'll RSVP me. I'm in the booklet. So we kind of have an idea of how many people to look out for. Or if you have any questions, if you haven't been to Blake Gardens before, it's a beautiful place to see. It's relaxing, lots to see. There's often people wandering around who will give you some information about the history of Blake Gardens and the plants you're looking at. The views alone are worth the trip. So I hope we get a good number of people coming.
Kate, you're talking about April 27th?
Yeah, the third Wednesday of the month.
Oh,
at
the
10 o'clock.
third.
The
Oh,
third
okay, okay, so the
Wednesday.
20.
The 20th.
Yeah,
Yeah,
20.
that
At
sounds
what
better.
time should we meet you at the Blake Garden?
10 o'clock.
Okay. I'll try to be there.
Okay, good. That would be nice.
Mhm.
Good. Good. Thank you. How about edibles, Pam?
So Edibles meets the fourth Thursday of each month. And of course, we're coming up on spring planting season. So you might want to join us. We talk about all issues related to edibles. And so we would love to have you join us. And you can email Martha or email me if you're interested in the Zoom link.
Thanks. Yeah, that's a lively group with lots of expertise. So it's really great to hear people's advice and stories. Robin isn't here to announce about the native plants group, but those meetings are the third Thursday, the same day as our board meeting, but it's a Zoom meeting at 7 p.m. And Robin will send the Zoom link out to anyone who lets her know that they're interested. We send it regularly to the people that are already in the group, but anyone is welcome. The herb group, I've forgotten what's happening in May. Is it at Fong's house?
It's at Gillis's.
Oh, okay. So we can't say any details about that because they're not home yet. But yes. So the herb group will meet the first Thursday, and we could use some new members in that. If anyone's interested, they should contact Barbara, I think.
Yes, our last meeting at Joyce Hennessey's lovely garden and train. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, a little louder.
Oh, okay. We had a wonderful time. It was the windiest day I can ever remember sitting outside, but in spite of it, we had a lovely time. Our topic was licorice, and you'd be amazed at how much you can learn about licorice. And maybe I'll put something in the Times about it.
Yeah, that would be good.
We had a potluck, and it turned out to be really great.
Yeah.
But we do want some new members. Really welcome you with open arms.
And it was quite an amazing meeting because Joyce's husband sang a bluegrass number for us a cappella. And Joyce gave us a tour of her garden and her train was running. It was just, and we had wonderful food. So if you want to have a good time, the herb group is for you.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Very good. Fantastic. Okay. Other committee reports or announcements? Tanya, I saw your note about Botanical Garden. Would you like to announce that?
Right. I just was going to say, David and I, we have lots of tickets to the UC Botanical Garden if people want to go. When you get a membership, I think they give you 8 tickets. So if people are interested in going, let us know and we'll give you some free tickets. It's so beautiful right now. So many things are in bloom and there's still newts there. It's a wonderful time of year to go if you don't already. And I think at least one person, Anna Frankfurt, is a volunteer there. So anyway.
Yes, thank you. That's great. It is so beautiful there. Anna.
Yes, I also have some extra passes to the Botanic Garden for if people need them. I get 2 every year when I renew. I do volunteer there, but you have to also be a member. So we always get 2 a year, and I don't always have people going that can use them. And like Tanya said, it is gorgeous right now. And if I can, I know I sent you this on the email, but next Tuesday, the 19th, normally the garden is closed. It's always closed the first and the third Tuesday of the month. But next, the 19th, there'll be a native plant, big native plant sale in the entry plaza. That is the kickoff day. It's going to go on the rest of the month, but Tuesday is going to be set up with a very
What
large
time?
sale.
What time?
10,
Because
10 until 2. Yeah, the native plants group has a huge propagation area. They have a lot of plants they're going to have out. So, but again, it will go on the rest of the month. And if you want to just go in for the plant sale, you can't go to the rest of the garden on Tuesday, but in general, if you're going to buy plants, you don't have to pay the entry fee.
Thanks, Anna. That's great. And let me just segue from that into bringing back the natives, which Robin and I talk about maybe too much, and you're all bored by it. But that this year will be a hybrid tour. The last 2 years it's been online only, but this year, this coming weekend will be online garden tours. And then the weekend of April 30th and May 1st will be in-person tours of different gardens. And I really highly recommend the online tours. It's such a variety of gardens. They're kind of far apart from each other, although they're all in the Bay Area. So it's a little bit unlikely that you would be able to visit them all, even if we were doing in-person tours. And to see the variety of native plants and how people have incorporated mostly, not all, but mostly native plants into their landscaping, and then the number of birds that they get, and it's really inspiring, really inspiring. So if you go to the website bringing back the natives dot com or .net, I've forgotten right now, but it's been in our newsletter the last 6 months. Then you can register for it. It's free, although she does appreciate a donation if possible. And it's so amazing to see these different gardens and the way people have used these different plants and how beautiful it is. So that is my plug for that. Any other club business that people want to do right now? Hold on 1 second. I'm getting a phone call. Sorry, I have my phone set to not ring, but the answering machine does go on, so then everybody can hear the whole message. Um, uh, Good. I can't think of anything else. So any other announcements from people right now? And we can also have announcements after the program if you think of something. But anybody else, or shall we just dive right in? Joyce, are you raising your hand? You're muted. You're muted.
Sorry. Bill and I went to San Francisco on BART yesterday and visited the Salesforce Park Gardens, and I highly recommend them. They're really beautiful. They're on the 3rd floor of the Salesforce Transit Building, and it's well documented. There's signs that tell you what everything is, and it's very nice area.
Thanks, Joyce. I visited it 5 or 6 years ago, and it was interesting then. So it'd be interesting to see how it's grown up. And did you feel okay on BART?
I did, yes.
Oh, good. That's a good sign. That's great. Good. Well, any other comments or announcements right now, or shall we dive right in? I'm going to start with Kate in about flowers, and then we're going to hear from Joyce about gophers, and then we're going to hear from Pam about edibles. So everybody's ready? All right. All right, Kate, I'm going to get your slides up. Everyone, please mute yourselves if you're not muted during the presentation, just because it's loud otherwise. And let's see. It'll take me just a moment. Oh my gosh. Okay.
You're going away.
You, you can see that no matter how many times we do this, it still is awkward for some of us.
Mary Hammond, mute
Yes.
yourself. Mute yourself.
Mute.
And Mary Mashuta, also mute yourself. Okay, you did. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so here we go. Finally, let's just see. So we're starting with Kate. All right.
Now, Fong, you need to mute you.
Oh, good grief. All right, and then Kate, you know, since I've got your slides, you'll have to tell me if you want me to advance or however you want to do it.
Okay.
All right, so here is your first slide.
I included Nemesia because they self-sow so beautifully and they're so easy to grow. So when they need deadheading, just leave the flowers on the ground and you will be rewarded with any number of plants, and they come in every rainbow available, and they're one of my favorite because I love the way they self-sow. You get free plants and they're very, very easy. I don't know anything about growing them from seed. I've not had any exposure to that because they self-sow so readily. I just don't see that there's any need. And again, I don't know how many Nemesia plants I have in the garden, kind of countless numbers now, but they have become a real favorite. And that's about it on the Nemesia. If you can go to the next slide.
So you're saying you buy a plant, you buy some plants,
yes,
and then you let them go to seed.
Well, I deadhead them frequently, and I just leave the deadhead cuttings on the ground, and they self-sow so beautifully.
And they're beautiful.
They
Yes.
are very beautiful.
All right.
And pansies, my all-time favorite, and they self-sow readily. Same thing. When you deadhead them, they actually, if you just deadhead them, you won't get them to reseed. So you do need a few seed pods. And they blow their seeds a long distance. So you can find them in places where you've never planted them. And very, very easy to grow. And a lot of the violas are true perennials. If you keep them cut back, they'll come back year after year. But I have violas and pansies all over the yard that I have never planted. And because they're a favorite, that is a winner in my book. And they're also very, very easy to grow. They do really well in pots. I have not grown them from cuttings just because it's so easy to let them self-sow, but they can be grown from cuttings, very easy. There's tons of, YouTube videos how to grow pansies from cuttings, so I won't bore people with details on that. But again, very easy to self-sow and easy to care for.
And colorful.
Very. They come in every color of the rainbow. These daisies, they are a winter bloomer, and same thing, they self-sow. I planted a few years ago, and in my front yard that is very prone to deer and gophers, they have self-sowed into an entire canopy of flowers. So I just love them. I don't really give them any care. And the only downside to them is that they are a winter bloomer. So the front yard looks a little shabby come spring and summer, but I think for what you get for winter color, it's a fair trade-off for a self-sower.
Do you water those, Kate?
I do. They are, for a daisy, they are surprisingly thirsty. I give them a scant amount of summer water just because it's not their bloom period. But I don't want them to completely die back. So they do get some summer water.
And you almost never see any deer damage, right?
Never. They leave them, even the turkeys leave them alone. So my new nemesis. Next. Fuchsias, really easy to grow from cuttings. I know there's an elaborate way to do them, but I simply take some cuttings, and a couple of years ago, Tanya was nice enough to give me a whole lot of cuttings, and I just strip the leaves off, all except the top two, and the lower leaves can be cut in half. Just put them in some water in a bright, sunny area, not direct sun, but a bright area. They will start putting out roots in no time. And then I just put them up in a pot with good quality acid soil, and you'll have all the fuchsias you could possibly want. This is just one of many that I've done, and they were really easy. And fuchsias also a perennial favorite of mine because they're very easy to grow, and you can do as many as you wish from cuttings. And the hydrangeas, this picture is actually from last year, as is the one from fuchsias, because they're obviously not budded out yet. But a friend of mine gave me these cuttings. He grows lots of hydrangeas. They are a favorite. And once they were well rooted, I just put them in a big pot and they just take off. So another plant to grow from cuttings with very little care. And they are heavy feeders. They do like a liquid fertilizer. They also like to have a foliar feeding, and they'll bloom better with that. And they do need a fair amount of water. So they are not a drought tolerant, but I think it's a fair trade-off of the beauty that they give us.
And do you cut those back?
Yes.
I mean, you deadhead them, but do you also cut the shrub back?
Yes, but they don't want to be cut back until they're finished blooming. There's so many different varieties, hydrangeas. I don't really know all the ins and outs, but the types that I have, they do benefit from a pretty hard cutback when they're done blooming, and then you'll be rewarded with more blooms next year. Next. I took this picture of the rose just because, and this is again from last year, it is currently budding out, but it's not in full bloom. But I have a very beautiful rose in a pot that Charles did for me from cuttings. And again, there's so much information online as far as how to grow roses from cuttings. Some people have success just, doing it from a root cutting. Other people are very elaborate step-by-step, putting them in darkness with a bag, etc. But roses can be grown from cuttings. I don't have enough patience to do it myself. I like to buy them already rooted and leafed out and ready to go because you'll have blossoms that year. But, for people who have the time and patience, I think doing roses from cuttings is not a bad way to go. And that's it on, I think that's, another hydrangea, same thing, grown from cuttings. This one, I think my friend did, but you'll have great success doing that from cuttings. And a couple of the other plants that I'm really impressed with that self-seed are things like Linaria. What are some, now I'm kind of drawing a blank, Lobelia. There's so many that self-sow. And if you let things just go to seed, you get two things. One, the following year, you'll get a swath of plants that are just lovely. And I notice I have lots and lots of robins in the yard. They come looking for the seed. So if you want to draw birds into your garden, self-sowing is another way to do that. So you get kind of a big bang for your buck. But mostly, self-sow and propagating, I think is a nice way to go, but also just growing flowers in general. It's just so lovely. I think that what's the saying? Flowers are Mother Nature's laughter. And I think that's so true. And you just can't get enough of them. So that's it.
Do you want to take some questions if people have questions for you?
Sure.
So I don't know if you can see if anybody wants to raise their hand or if you just want to unmute yourself if you have any particular question for Kate. Certainly her garden is absolutely full of every kind of flower. Tanya.
I would, when you say, I was glad to see those fuchsia cuttings rooted. And also, when you say take cuttings from hydrangeas, do you root them in water or how do you do that?
Root them in water. Yes.
And
very, very simple. And
and
they
just
will,
and just take like two nodes or something or two leaves.
yeah. Remove all the leaves except a couple bottom leaves and cut them in half. And within a week or two, you'll start to see a few little roots appearing. And I let them get a good number of roots before, and then I just put them in a pot of good quality soil. And so far, good luck.
Great. Thank you.
Geraniums and pelargoniums are another plant that usually root very easily from cuttings, and some salvias as well, and I'm sure many others.
I was going to say, I may be being sentimental, but the pelargoniums, the various things I have that people have given me, I just like that so much because I say, oh, that's from so-and-so and that's from so-and-so, or that's people have since died, you know, and and that's why I have so many of those pelargoniums in the front because, you know, people give them to you.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really nice to have kind of a memory plant of someone. I have a beautiful hydrangea that I got from a friend who passed away. And every year when it's in bloom, it just reminds me so much of her. And I think it's true. It's really nice to have that memory link with flowers.
Well, and that I probably shouldn't admit this, but my mother, who loved pelargoniums, when we would take walks, would just sort of pinch off colors that we passed that she liked, you know, the sort of 2-color type that you have, Carrie, and then she would take them all home and root them. So she had little pots from everybody in the neighborhood, which she could have asked for a cutting, but she just took a tiny piece. So great, Kate. Thank you so much. And
thank you.
I know we'll see lots of pictures of your garden probably in May.
Yes.
I'm expecting. Good. Good. All right. Well, Joyce, can we go to your PowerPoint?
Yes.
And I should have asked you this at the beginning, Joyce, but you know, I only got 4 slides. That's all you gave me. Okay. So just tell me when you want me to show them.
Sounds good. Okay.
All right. Off you
go. Can you hear me? Is the volume okay?
We can hear you, but maybe you want to speak up louder.
Okay. Yes. So gophers can be quite a problem. And it's important to know who your enemy is. Is it a gopher? Is it a mole? Is it a vole? Is it a squirrel? They all have different characteristics. All of them have tunnels. Gophers leave big mounds of soil and they're crescent shaped. And I think the first picture is the gopher. Let's show the gopher.
It's the mound.
Oh, that's the mounds. Okay. Those are what the gopher mounds look like. It's they push the soil out from the tunnel and then they leave it on top and it looks kind of like a horseshoe shape or kind of a half circle, depending on what else is in their way. Then moles make visible raised tunnels. And to me, it looks like you have a hose. If you have a grassy area and it looks like you left a hose under the grass and the hose winds around and then the grass grows over it. That's to me what a visible raised tunnel looks like. And that means it's a mole. Voles are similar to tiny little mice. These are all rodents, and the voles leave open holes, as do squirrels. So once you know that you have a gopher, then you can see the damage that the gopher does. The gopher likes to chew the trunk all along the trunk. And squirrels do this too. And they can kill your trees. Gophers also eat the roots from beneath the ground. And they can kill your plants by eating the roots. If you have a plant and it just, one day it just kind of falls over, oftentimes that can be a gopher that ate the roots. They can destroy lawns, and they can chew the whole bottom end of a lot of plants. So exclusion is the first thing that you can try. And use physical barriers. Maybe you can put me up on the screen again, Martha, please.
Yes, well, you are there, but I'll spotlight you more. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And they make chicken wire cages that you can see in the stores, and they're 2 pieces of wire, and they're kind of sealed together along the edges. And then you open the cage and you plant the plant inside the cage. The problem with those is that the plant will grow and then the roots will expand. And if your plant grows big enough, it will expand outside of the cage. And unfortunately, the roots, the meristematic tissue, which is the growth tissue of the roots, that is the new growth of and that will be what's on the outside of your cage within a few months sometimes. And so the gopher comes along and he doesn't need to get through the cage, and can just eat all those tender little roots from the edges of the cage. Then those cages can be expensive if you're going to try to put a whole bunch of them in your garden. They can be very expensive and take up a lot of room underground. And they're also somewhat difficult to install. So you can make metal barriers around the edge of your garden or around the edge of a certain area of your garden. And what I recommend is stainless steel because it lasts longer. The problem with chicken wire is that it deteriorates after a few years, and it's a lot of work to dig it all up. So you really kind of want to get the strongest wire that you can, and you use 3/4 inch metal chicken wire mesh underneath your raised beds. If you're going to do raised beds, you can just install it flat on the ground and then put the soil on top, and then put, barriers around the edge to hold the soil in place. But a gopher can cover an area, one gopher can cover an area anywhere between 200 square feet and 2,000 square feet. So you can have, your neighbor can have gophers, and if your neighbor has gophers, you will have gophers in not too long a time. The most important thing to remember is not to use poison, because the poison makes them thirsty, and then they come above ground to die because they're thirsty. They're searching for water. Gophers do come out of their holes. Sometimes I've even seen them come out during the day. Then what happens is that the birds of prey, the owls and the hawks and other animals of prey, they eat the dead gopher and that was poisoned. And then the birds of prey die, and then you're going to have a lot of gophers and rats and mice and all sorts of critters because you've killed off your support, your birds of prey and other predators. So it's really important not to use poison. Then I recommend that you talk to your neighbors. And I've even organized neighborhood gopher trapping meetings so that you work together with all your neighbors and you share that information about not using poison. And you can share your ideas and you can share your experiences. So can we show the gopher, please? The picture of the gopher. Yes, this is the adult gopher. They are rodents. They carry a lot of diseases. You're going to want to be wearing gloves in your garden, protective gloves. If you're dealing with the traps, if you're dealing with any part of the rodent. So trapping. The most important thing about trapping is knowing that gophers have, like I said, they can have tunnels up to 2,000 square feet. So they get tired of a tunnel in one area or another, and they move to a different area, and they make new tunnels almost every day or every other day. So if you put a trap in an old hole, the gopher may not come back to that old hole, and you won't catch anything at all. And you'll say, oh, this doesn't work. But you just have to make sure that you know that the tunnel that you're putting the trap in is a recent tunnel, that the gopher is still using that tunnel. The other thing is that predators can have caught that gopher. Things that don't work. The Master Gardener program has tested those noisemakers that they advertise and sell, and they've discovered that they don't work. What happens is predators come along and they catch the gopher, and then people who use those noisemakers think, oh, the noisemaker worked. But in scientific studies, comparing areas that had noisemakers and areas that did not, the noisemakers do not seem to work. Trapping does work. It's not a lot of fun unless you like that kind of thing, but it does work. So the thing to discover is where your new holes are. Where is the gopher when you're getting ready to trap the gopher? So what you do is you go out the night before, and first of all, you've ordered all your traps, and Bill is going to talk soon about the trapping process itself, and he's going to show you a few different types of traps. So you choose your trap. There's also more information on the Master Gardener website, and I'll give you that information near the end. So you order your traps, you get them all ready. Then the night before you're going to set your traps, you go out and you flatten all the old holes. You just stand on them and pound them down and get it ready so that you can tell in the morning that's an old hole, that's not a current hole. Then you get out the next morning and you look for the new holes. Maybe there won't be one in that next morning, try the morning after, but that's where you're going to try to set your traps. You often need 2 traps side to side because you don't know what direction the gopher is going to come from in that tunnel. And so you have to set certain kinds of traps work one way. And so you have to set 2 traps. So you'll find that out when you study the information that comes from your trap. Please make sure that you read all the directions. And again, do not put your fingers inside the hole of the trap. You will not be happy. That can be pretty sharp, the inside of the trap. So don't do that. Okay. And I recommend that you read all the directions of your trap and go to the trap's website also. And a lot of traps these days have videos on how to set their traps and how to catch the gophers. To locate the tunnel, Bill's going to talk about that. And in terms of gopher disposal afterward, one method of disposal is to bury the gopher in place. There seems to be some evidence that there is a detrimental effect, a deterrent effect to this method. And it has the effect of teaching the other gophers, oh, this is not a safe area. And sometimes that can prevent gophers. The other thing we have done, since we know we have not poisoned them, we leave the gopher out on top of the ground. And the birds of prey come and pick up the gopher and take it and feed their families with it. And so you have helped your birds of prey, and it also alerts them to the fact that there are gophers in this area. We usually try to put the gopher near where we found it so that they know this is the area where the gophers are. And then we have actually observed the birds of prey coming more often to that area afterward. The last thing I'm going to say is that yellow jackets nest in the old gopher tunnels. And so I recommend that you set out yellow jacket traps if you've seen gophers, and even if you haven't, because springtime is the time when the yellow jackets are starting up. The queen is making her nest. And if you catch the queen before she's made a big nest, you will have prevented the problem of the yellow jackets. So I do highly recommend yellow jacket traps. They work really well. So I'm going to get Bill. He's going to show you a few different, Martha, can you show the last slide, please? Oh, this is a gopher caught. This is Bill, and he has caught this gopher. So it does work. Trapping does work. Okay, and then can you show please yes, this is the Master Gardener website. This is where you can enter this website and then do a search for gophers, and you will find a lot of information on the website. So now I'm going to go get Bill, and he's going to give a short demonstration, and then you can ask questions. So thank you. I'll be right back. Bill, it's your turn.
I'll just say while we're waiting that apropos Joyce's comment about leaving the dead gophers out for birds of prey, some of you have seen a video I showed last year of my tenant, my housemate, a young man who works in the San Francisco Parks and Rec department, and he works out at the golf course in San Francisco where there are a lot of gophers, and one of his jobs is to pull the gophers out of the traps, and he has trained the hawks in that area that when he's out doing his rounds, they should follow him from tree to tree, and then he throws the dead gopher up and the hawks come and get it. So very entertaining. Just
yeah, I've had that same experience, but with crows.
Yeah.
Oh, they're early.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me put my stuff down.
Yeah. Martha, can you please quit the PowerPoint? Bill's going to do a live demonstration.
Okay.
All right.
Fabulous.
Thank you. You may need to turn the background off.
Okay. Turning the background off. Virtual background. None.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So, can you move that thing up?
Yeah.
All
They
right.
can't see your.
Yeah,
they can-
working. Okay, down here. So.
Wait. Let me move this.
Okay. So I'm going to be demonstrating 3 different kinds of gopher trap right now. One of them is this device, which is called a gopher hawk. And the second one is called a black hole trap, which looks like that. And the third one is called the Gophinator. Now, these all use spring mechanisms to fire the trap, but they do it in very different ways. So first of all, let's start with the gopher hawk, because it will cover some of the same ground as the others. You need to find the tunnel under the ground. There's multiple ways to do it, but typically what you do is that you use some long, thin thing to push in the ground looking for the gopher tunnel. Now, this is a probe that comes with a gopher hawk, but you can use anything like a screwdriver or something. But the point is that you only want to put the trap and dig for the trap at a location where you know that there is a tunnel. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to the area. You do not try and put a trap at the gopher mound itself. When the gopher is done for the day with its entrance, it fills up that tunnel, the end of the tunnel, with a lot of dirt. And so right at the mound, all there is dirt. There's no tunnel there. So you have to get about a foot or more away from the mound and probe for the tunnel. Oftentimes going halfway between 2 adjacent mounds will work. So the idea is that you use this thing. I'm going to demonstrate by pushing down into the ground, played by my hand, with this probe. You'll see it's resisting. And if you push it in and you don't, you feel resistance all the way, you've not found a gopher tunnel. Whenever you found a gopher tunnel, then you'll be pushing it and it will be resisting, and then it will break the top of the gopher tunnel here. All of a sudden it'll drop like a rock for a moment and then stop again when it finds the bottom. That means you found a cavity under the ground, which is probably a gopher tunnel. So you stop pressing down at this point because you want to know how far down in the ground you are. And but you need to know how far down it is. So there are probably better kinds of tape than this, but let's imagine that this is what I'm using. So the idea is that I've marked this probe with a piece of tape so that at the bottom, that's where the ground level outside where humans was. And so the bottom of the tunnel was this far underground. Gopher tunnel depths can vary all over the place, but they're usually within a foot or 2. So the next step is, if we're going to do it with the gopher hawk, which is the gopher hawk comes with this, which actually fits into here, and this big pile driver kind of thing, which makes a tunnel, a vertical hole in the ground that's big enough for your actual trap to fit into. And so this can be done in multiple ways, but typically what I would do is mark how far down this little pile driver thing has to go. So you see I've got this here, and now I put some sort of tape onto this. And now I know that whenever I'm pounding this into the ground, I stop whenever I get to this level at the bottom of the tape. And you use something like a rubber mallet, and you pound, 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 pound until the surface of the ground is level with this. And so you've now got a tunnel down to the right level. So now you can pull this out. And now it's time to insert the actual trap. The gopher hawk, this is the gopher hawk when it's disarmed and safe. When you're going to arm the trap, this is what it's going to look like. You're going to press this thing in. There was a little yellow bar here that at this end of the trap that is entirely obscured whenever it's in the arm position. When it gets down to here, you'll feel a click and you'll know you're at the end. And the way the trap actually works is that in place, it looks like this, and this is supposed to be touching the bottom of the gopher tunnel. And the idea is that the gopher comes in and that happens. And let me look. Okay. And so But you can't put the gopher hawk into the tunnel with the trap already armed. That mechanism is relatively delicate and it's easy to bend it out of shape, at which point you damage the trap and have to throw it away. So you have to put it into the tunnel down at, I'm going to need another one of those, down at the level, well, actually, I know a better way to do this, all right? Yes, it's alarming, isn't it? All right, so this yellow level on the side of the trap is obscured whenever it's armed. So I go and, let's see, that came off. All right, so I go up here and I imagine that this is the third, I measure relative to this. So I want the gopher hawk to go into the ground to about here. So in a real tunnel, it'll be further in than this, but I'm just doing a demonstration. So let's assume it was deeper in the ground. So you push this into the ground until it lines up with the bottom of your little tape mark. And once you've done that, then you arm the trap. Strong spring. And so the important part is that you not press this surface against anything because it'll damage it. Once you're to this point, the yellow part that was marked on the trap is now obscured and it's armed and you can go away. And then you need to check it frequently. Sometimes the traps will fire within an hour after you've put them in. Sometimes they may take a few hours or even until the next day or more. And so the gopher comes along underground, here's its tunnel, and that happens. And you now see that the yellow part is exposed again. If you look and check your trap, seeing this yellow part exposed tells you that your trap is fired. And so now you have to pull the trap out of the ground, which can require some amount of force because the gopher is much bigger around than your hole in the ground is. But you have to pull stoutly and you pull it out, and here's the gopher. Important thing, do not touch the gopher. They have all sorts of vermin and stuff on them. What you need to do is decide where you want to deposit the gopher's body, probably where predators can find it, but which is out of the way of humans, and then release, get the body out of the trap by basically pushing this open and then shaking until the gopher comes out. But don't touch the gopher. All right, then there's a second kind called a black hole trap. This is more of a guillotine kind of mechanism. It's got a wire here like that, which is what acts as the guillotine, and you arm it. There's a little paddle that serves as the trap mechanism, the trap trigger rather. And so you mate, there's this wire here that holds the trap mechanism open, and it's held in place by this piece of metal that goes into a plastic paddle. If you can't really see it probably in this picture, but there's a paddle in there. And so that holds it open. You have, okay, for this kind of trap, you have to dig down to the tunnel and get it down to the point of the tunnel. And the idea is that this end comes and gets put straight up against the mouth of the tunnel. And the idea is to make the gopher think this is part of their tunnel, that there's not some special trap here. Oh, this is just some more of my tunnel. And the way it works is that at the other end, there's this hole here. That's an air hole. And the idea is that the gopher, if it feels an air current, knows that, oh, there's a hole somewhere, I need to block it up. So the gopher will come rushing over to where this thing is, and then it will enter the trap and trip it like that. And that one is easier to get out of the ground because it's not actually covered by anything. So you pull the gopher out, and then you have to release the gopher body from the trap. by pressing down on the spring. And once again, do not touch the body of the gopher. It is dangerous to do that. Another detail is that if you want to increase the quality of your simulation of a gopher tunnel, you may want to put dirt on the bottom of the tunnel here. You'll notice how I'm holding the trigger mechanism closed so they can't fire whenever I'm putting my finger in here. But I usually just press this little wire in here so it's out of the way. And so once again, you line this thing up with the mouth of the tunnel underground, and then you have to cover any places where light can leak through into the tunnel with a bit of dirt, except for the air hole. The air hole has to be there. And if you are trying to be especially vigilant, you can put two of these back to back so that this one will capture gophers approaching from this direction, and this one will capture gophers coming from this direction. And let me disarm that. Then there is.
I don't think you need to talk about that one.
Oh,
Because
okay.
it's harder to use. And
Yeah, there's this one is a mouse trap tap kind of thing, and it requires more training to do that. Anyway, let's see, what was I going to say? So you need to dispose of the gopher someplace where predators are likely to find it.
I talked about that.
You talked about that. Okay. And a single cavity in the ground can fool you. You can get cavities in the ground that occur due to natural purposes. And you can sometimes be fooled about that by a gopher hawk, because that just tells you where a hole in the ground was. It doesn't tell you exactly where a tunnel is. With the gopher hawk, you may need to probe into near the first hole to see if there's a second hole there, and in which case you've probably got a tunnel. So like I said, you can possibly be fooled by an isolated hole in the ground with the gopher hawk, but on the other hand, the gopher hawk is a lot easier to install. So it's a matter of choice as to which is easier for you to do. Certainly the gopher hawk is faster. Installing the black hole takes a while, but it's a trade-off. Anyway, is that enough? Okay.
Yeah. And if you could stay here, they're going to ask questions.
All righty.
Okay, that's our presentation. And does anyone have any questions? Is there time, Martha, for questions?
Sure, we can have questions. Yep. Marion, unmute yourself. And thanks, Bill, for chiming in.
That was a great presentation. I have had gophers. One thing that I have used that I've had success with is grating Irish Spring soap and putting them in the hole.
What is that?
And I don't know that I have any more gophers, and that was quite a while ago. So for what it's worth, that's worth a try.
That just made your yard unattractive to them.
Well, they don't like the smell.
Mm-hmm.
Joyce, I've also, to piggyback on what Marion said, I've been using coffee grounds. Apparently gophers do have a strong sense of smell, and they don't like the smell. It obviously doesn't kill them, but it does seem to keep them out of particular areas. I have a large yard. I've been collecting lots of coffee grounds. Do you have much information on using coffee grounds? Do you think they help as a deterrent?
I have not heard about coffee grounds, and we don't use coffee, so I have not tried that myself. You can do a search on the internet and see, but the Master Gardener program is one of the few programs that actually scientific tests whether these kinds of things do work or not.
Right.
So I would recommend maybe you try to do a search for a Master Gardener program. The website information I gave you earlier, and then search for Gopher on the Master Gardener site and see if there has been any scientific research about that. But if it works, then
I do have one comment, is that whatever you put in the ground that way, you need to make sure that it doesn't work by poisoning the gopher, because then if something eats the gopher, they'll get the poison too.
I don't think it's anything they ingest, that they simply don't like the smell and they'll leave that area and go elsewhere, which means probably the gophers are just in a different area of the garden, but.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, gopher tunnel networks can be very, very extensive.
Yes.
Marion.
Joyce, could you put the master gardener,
Yes.
thank you, on the chat?
Martha has that. Martha, can you show that, please?
Well, yeah, so that's
Just put it in the chat would be, make it easier.
Okay.
yeah,
Thank
if you
you.
could just type it into the chat, Joyce, then I won't have to find the
Okay.
slideshow again.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Okay.
Okay, you can put your background on again.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Joyce and Bill. That was very well researched and intensive.
I have a quick question. Does the those gopher traps also work for moles?
It has caught a mole. Moles are not as big a problem as gophers because moles in some ways are your friends. They are eating some of the insects that will damage your plants. They don't actually eat the roots of your plants.
One other thing is that if you actually are trying to trap them, which as Joyce said, is probably not a good idea, you would have to use a different size mechanism because they're different sizes.
Yeah.
They're smaller than gophers.
We have accidentally caught a mole with the gopher trap. It was a big mole, but the little ones can often evade the traps.
Okay.
But again, the moles don't do as much damage to a garden. Well, they do some damage because they can make those tunnels on top of the ground, near the top of the ground. But they don't eat the roots of the plants. They're
Okay.
not vegetarians.
Thank you.
Thanks. That's great.
Okay.
Great, Joyce. And any other question while Joyce is looking for that website, and she's going to type it into the chat. And otherwise, we have another treat in store with Pam's wonderful presentation. I don't know if people want to take 1 or 2 minutes just to stretch or run to the restroom. Pam, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Maybe start in 2 or 3 minutes.
Yes, that's great. While I'm bringing this presentation up, I want to say the other presentations were very interesting, and I did have a gopher in my yard for a while, and that's not what I want. And they're very destructive, and not only do they eat your plants. Why isn't this working?
What are you trying to do?
I'm trying to bring up the presentation.
Oh, well, you don't have to bring it up yet.
Okay, well, my tech support is standing by.
Okay,
So,
yes, I see your tech support. Hello.
Yeah, this is Chris. And so not only are they destructive and will eat your plants, but I had one, he's now gone to go for heaven. He would move back and forth between my yard and my neighbor's yard, and I killed him. But now his tunnels are falling in. So they're making these hazards all over my yard that I keep falling into. And so that's a consideration too.
Yes. And like I say, the yellow jackets can come and nest in those tunnels. So we tried to fill up the old tunnels with dirt after the gopher is gone. And you can't always do it because the dirt, there's a limit how much dirt you can put in, and then you can fill up near the edge. But yeah, that is a problem.
Yeah, well, I feel so lucky I don't have any gophers, knock on wood. But
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
okay, well, if you want to put your first slide up or put your screen up, if Chris is nearby, then we'll start again in about a minute.
Can you help me?
Thanks, dear.
All right, working on it.
Okay. I
So
just have to say, I just
sure.
love the little cat
And that's what I get.
eyes above your head, Pam.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, good. Just going back to the beginning. Perfect.
Excellent. Okay, so Pam, let's just wait 1 minute, and then we can, I think most people will be sort of ready. I've got you spotlighted, just so for most people, your picture will probably be on the side of the screen.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Well, what a rich day. I'm glad we're recording this so people can watch some of this information again later. Don't forget that our YouTube channel is always available to everybody. You just put in El Cerrito Garden Club, or you find the exact link in our newsletter, where it appears every month, and you can watch these videos of our past meetings or presentations and get any information you missed by not coming to that meeting or that you forgot to write down. Let's see. What do you think, Pam?
Anytime.
Okay. I'm looking at the number of empty
Yeah.
seats, but it could be they could still be in the room and just not sitting down. All right. We're so happy to have Pam, a master gardener, as well as Joyce was, and an expert in growing edibles, and the chairperson of our edible study group, which is a very fun group. And a subject that we're all concerned about is the drought, in spite of today's rain, which is just a drop in the bucket.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
over to you, Pam. We're so glad you're going to talk to us.
Thank you very much. So yeah, it's kind of fun that it rained today, and I'm giving a presentation on growing vegetables in a drought. But as we all know, we didn't receive enough precipitation this winter. There's no chance that we can catch up at this point. And so that means that we're probably looking at severe drought again this year. And the experts are calling this the third year of this drought. But in fact, precipitation has been declining over at least the last 20 years. I often think when it rains about the storms that we used to have, and I'm sure you remember them, where the rain and the wind was so heavy that trees were bending over, and they were really large events. And that doesn't happen very often these days. And at the same time, temperatures of the planet are rising. So that means we're probably going to have water restrictions this year. And again, if you've been around a while, you probably remember water restrictions where people with, the last names that start with A through whatever get to water on Monday and so forth. But all is not lost, because there are things that we can do to garden, and especially vegetable garden, but a lot of these things apply to whatever you're growing. Strategies that we can use to limit our water use and still be able to grow things. And so those are soil amendments, irrigation, and low water plants as kind of the three key elements. And so I'm going to run through these fairly quickly, but at any time we can dive deeper into these subjects, and we can have further exploration of them at another time. So soil amendments, there are a couple of primary ones, and they are compost and mulch. And you need to think about this as you're growing your soil and not just plants, because the soil, of course, is the basis of everything that goes on in your garden. And so developing your soil is key, and compost and mulch will improve the quality of your soil, as well as reducing the amount of evaporation that goes on when you water, because a large percentage of the water you put on your garden, if you're gardening especially from above or watering from above, evaporates and is of no value to your plants. So composting is very valuable because you can add compost to your soil, which is, of course, organic material that then helps your soil retain water. So it kind of soaks up the water that you give, and then it keeps it to distribute to the plants more slowly. So you want your soil to act like a sponge and not a sieve. So you want to keep the water from just passing through, and you want it to hang around for a while. So in the US, food waste contributes 15% to the solid waste that goes to landfill. And so, of course, composting, even if you put it in your green bin, is very important. And when it goes to the landfill, of course, it releases carbon dioxide and methane, and we don't need any more of that. So composting is environmentally sound. It's a way of recycling food and garden waste. And it's something that you can do both indoors and outdoors. So I'm sure you're all familiar with composting outdoors. These are some options for composting. They all sort of have their benefits and drawbacks. In my yard, composting openly would not work very well. I even had trouble with rodents in a stackable compost bin. So I've stopped doing that because I was providing a hotel for rats, and that wasn't my goal. So obviously the tumbler there would work better for that purpose. And so it kind of depends on the space that you have, and kind of what your physical abilities are, I guess. And so so compost is very useful. What you want to do is make sure that whatever you're using to compost, your kitchen scraps and your cuttings from your yard is close, so that it's convenient for you. If your compost is built correctly, and managed correctly, there won't be any smell, because what's happening in there, of course, is that there's bacteria and fungi and all that breaks down the material. And if you cover it with brown stuff, then it keeps any smell that there might be down. You can get compost for your garden in about 3 months if you're diligent about turning it and watering it. If you don't want to do that, you can compost and just leave it, and eventually it will break down by itself. It just takes longer. The other thing at this point I want to say is that in our area, it's pretty unlikely that you're going to get your compost to a sufficient temperature that it will kill weed seeds. All right. If you live on the other side of the hills where the temperatures are higher, you can manage it to a certain temperature. But here, because we're cooler, that's probably not going to happen. All right, so composting indoors. So I think this is a fairly new tool. And I know someone that has one of these, and it's very interesting. She keeps it in her garage. It's electric, and you put your food scraps in there. It's not going to handle your garden waste, but at least you're using the food scraps to good advantage, and it simply grinds up the material, and it makes compost for you. And so it can be a really good option. It's quiet. Again, it doesn't smell. It's a little pricey, but it may be a good option for you. Mulch. So mulch comes in many different forms. It's very important for maintaining moisture in your soil. And I'm just going to talk about 3 of them. There are probably more options, but we can talk about compost. I'm sorry, we can talk about compost first of all. So compost can act as a mulch, as well as something that you add to your soil by digging it in. And so it has the advantage that even put just on top of your soil, it will help enrich your soil, right? So that's a good option. Wood chips are another. You have to be a little careful with wood chips because they can pull nitrogen out of the soil. They come in lots of different sizes, including a little, 1/2-inch kind of size, so that they cover really well. And straw, I think, is a good option too. I use that in my yard. So I go to the urban farmer and I buy a bale of straw. You want straw, of course, and not hay, because hay is going to have seeds. But a barrel of straw then lasts me throughout the year. And it's a little messy because it gets all over your car. Oh, excuse me, gets all over your car, for example, gets stuck in the carpet. But it's inexpensive. It's easy to do, and it does form a kind of a dense mat so that it's working effectively as a mulch. It breaks down, of course, eventually. Your mulch should be 3 to 4 inches deep. And I will see that most people, when I look around, don't tend to put the mulch on that thick. But if you do, it's not only going to keep moisture in your soil, but it's also going to keep down weeds because they're not getting light or as much heat. All of these, as well as part of the way that they keep moisture in your soil is well, first of all, from keeping the sun from baking on the water out of the soil. But secondly, they keep the temperature down. Some people use stones. You have to be a little careful with stones, though, because they can conduct heat, and especially the light ones, they can make the soil very warm and bake your plants. So that's something you want to be careful about. Irrigation. So we all know that peak irrigation times are before sunrise and after sunset, so that the soil is cooler and evaporates less. And evaporation, again, accounts for probably easily 25% of what you put on top of the ground. Hand watering is especially ineffective, and drip irrigation, of course, is very common. The thing to keep in mind at this time is that you need to actively manage it. So drip irrigation shouldn't be just sort of set and forget. And it's a good idea to test your soil before you water. So either with a probe or a meter to make sure that you need to water and that you're not wasting your water. Because often the surface is dry, but at the root level, there's water available to the plants. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about each of these methods. So water harvesting. So on the left is a water barrel that collects water off of the roof of this building. And there's a filter on the top that, that filters out any debris and that sort of thing. So this is, they usually come in like 50 to 100 gallon barrels. And they, which is, you know, you have to decide whether that's enough water for your garden or if it's worth doing. There are also larger, much larger containers if you have the roof size. Robin Mitchell has talked about those, and it'd be good to have a picture of what she does. She collects a very large amount of water every year to use in her yard. And so, and you know, the new code for new buildings these days requires that the building retain the water that comes off of the roof. So it's becoming more and more popular and necessary. And a second option is gray water, which we've talked about a little bit in meetings, or at least in our edible meetings. And so this is a diagram of how a gray water system could take water from the tub and the shower, as well as the washing machine. And in this diagram, the water is being sent to an underground container that retains the water, and then it's available to use in the garden. So gray water is a wonderful option. I think that's also something that is going to become much more popular in the future, and that houses will be plumbed routinely to do this. You can't at the current time, you can't divert water from other water sources in your house. And the reason, of course, is the possibility of bacteria, and you don't want that to happen. Gray water, for the most part, is recommended for landscape plants and not for vegetables for that reason as well. And, you know, the underground container there is nice, but you don't have to have it. You can apply the water directly, the gray water, directly to your garden. I have a friend that has a gray water system, and hers pipes out directly to a row of fruit trees that she has, and works very well. So drip irrigation, again, is very popular. There have been some advancements made, though, in drip irrigation systems. And primarily that is that rather than a drip irrigation system that sends water out to individual plants, it looks more like this. And this tubing has holes about every 8 inches on the tubing. So it releases water. And then you don't have, and it waters the soil, and you don't have the problem of having to redo your drip irrigation all the time because the plant that you were sending the water to is no longer there or got bigger or whatever. I had drip irrigation put in, and I was surprised to know that immediately the next year it needed reworking for that reason, and also because something had chewed a hole in one of the lines. And so it really didn't work out all that well. An alternative that's similar to this is, of course, soaker hoses. And soaker hoses you can get away with for a while, but they, unfortunately, they tend to get clogged with water, things from the water itself, and also from mud, and then they don't work so well after a while. Sub-irrigation is a topic that I'm very interested in. I recently saw a demonstration at the Richmond High School garden of a sub-irrigation system that looked like the one on the left. And so what you're seeing here is a raised bed, and at the bottom it has a drainage pipe, and that's just PVC kind of thing. And at one end, here on the right, it is a filler tube, and on the left is an overflow tube. And they are managing a reservoir at the bottom of the raised bed. Above that is placed gravel, like just road gravel. And sometimes there's a liner, actually there's a liner all the way around it to keep the moisture in. But above the gravel is a liner just to keep from the soil from invading the gravel. And then the plants are watered by capillary action, which causes the water to move up in the soil from wet to dry. And then the plants, that water is available to the plants. And so the advantages are that the water in the reservoir doesn't evaporate. So you're not losing the water for that purpose. The demonstration I saw at the Richmond High School, they said that they fill the reservoir and that it can last for 3 months. And of course, the rain also can percolate down to that reservoir and be retained for that reason. So you're watering your plants from the roots rather than from above, and which is not great for your plants. If you're watering from above and the leaves are getting wet, you're running the risk of mildew and damage and sunburn and all that kind of thing. And so I'm told that the roots of the plant, if they are fairly long, will go down to that mat above the gravel, but they won't go any further. So on the right is an example of a small container, a pot, that also it's designed to have a reservoir below. And it will have a filler on the top as well. And so, again, the water isn't lost by evaporation, and it lasts for a very long time. So that is something to think about. Of course, if you have raised beds and you don't have that in it, you're faced with having to remove the soil in order to build this. But on the other hand, if you're building something new, I really suggest that you look into it. Oyas. So Oyas are an old method of, again, delivering water directly to the to the roots of a plant and avoiding evaporation. And so there are many forms of this. And so the one in the middle shows an original style of Oya, which is basically a pot. And they're made out of clay so that the water slowly moves from the pot to the soil. And because of the nature of the clay, it doesn't move too quickly. It doesn't just flow out, but it moves slowly. And on the sides are other examples of Oyas. So the ones with the point, you poke that in the ground and then fill it up with water, and you can leave it. This is a great thing too if you're going away, so that your plants can be watered over time. And the one on the left, on the right, the example is the same. It's just glazed on the top, which is kind of a good idea to avoid having it evaporate. You've probably seen people or pictures of people sticking wine bottles filled with water into the ground. It's the same sort of concept. You just, it maybe is less visible, and you don't have wine bottles sticking out everywhere. But that is, again, something for consideration. And dry farming is a subject that's becoming increasingly studied, and that is driven to a large degree by farms in the Central Valley and all, who are facing really severe water restrictions currently. And so they are actively looking for different ways to farm that uses less water. And so it involves the basic concepts that I've already talked about, which is enhancing the soil for water retention, watering from beneath as much as possible, making sure your irrigation is tuned well. But it also incorporates some of the techniques shown here of tilling, shade, and dust mulching. So tilling, the idea is that you disturb the soil down to a couple inches just so that water can be absorbed better, because sometimes how the soil gets kind of hard from water being put on it, from the deposits from the water. So the idea is just to make it easier for the water to filter through. Shade, of course, is a consideration because not all vegetables need 8 or 10 hours of sun a day, and some of them don't want it at all. And so if you take advantage of the light conditions for individual plants, and there are definitions, of course, for what is shade, what is light shade, and those definitions and so forth. And those definitions are in terms of number of hours of sunlight required. So if you put plants in a more shady area, vegetable plants that don't require all of that sun, then you're going to have them retain moisture better because the sun isn't beating on the ground. And dust mulching is a technique that involves mounding soil more around the base of the plant, so that evaporation doesn't occur as rapidly. So there are some plants that are most appropriate for dry farming. And those are dry beans, melons, potatoes, and tomatoes. And then it can be used for other plants to varying degrees of success. And again, I have a friend who does this in his yard with vegetables, and he was doing mostly beans, and it worked very well. And so you might consider this. And keep in mind that for a lot of vegetables, that once the plant forms fruit, and while it's ripening, it doesn't need as much water. And in fact, it's a farming technique to withhold water, especially like from tomatoes, because if you withhold the water, the tomatoes and the fruit are sweeter. And with tomatoes, you avoid the problem of having them become mealy, because that's why tomatoes do that. All right, so low water plants. Water plants, as you know, require different amounts of water. And so this is a list of plants that, and the amount of water that they need generally. And so again, if you're planning a vegetable garden, you might want to keep these things in mind and group them according to how much water they need. And then you're not going to give them more water than is necessary. Of course, three sisters planting, companion planting, works on the principle of shade and grouping by putting together beans and what? I can never remember. Beans and corn and squash. Thank you very much. And that way they have something to climb on, which is the corn, and the beans do, and they're also given shade by the other plants. Shade on the ground keeps the soil cooler as well. I find that grouping plants closer together than even maybe recommended also has the advantage of shading the ground, and the ground stays moister down there. So all of these topics, again, are things that we can look into further because they're more complicated than the overview that I provided. But I just want to say that it's not necessary to not plant a garden this year because of the drought. It's just important to have some strategies, and remember that growing your own food, of course, is healthy. You can grow fine organic produce. The plants that you're growing sequester carbon out of the air, and it's a wonderful activity, of course, as we know. So with that, I hope these are some things that prompt some thinking on your part. Okay. Are there any questions about the things that we've covered? How do I get my cursor back again?
I don't see any hands up, but if anybody has questions or
Yeah.
comments for Pam,
thank you.
Please go right ahead.
And I thought I would show a pot that has a water reservoir at the bottom. It's really very simple. So this is a white plastic plant. It has this little basket inside. In this case, it has a little wick to wick the water up to the top. You can also just make pots like this. You can take a pot and put another pot on the inside that is a little wider than this one so that it sits up a bit. And you've got yourself a self-watering pot. Any thoughts or questions?
I like the idea of the ollas, and actually our club member Laura Braynon Rodriguez showed me an olla in her front yard when I was visiting her garden a few months ago. Just a simple unglazed clay pot, as you were showing, Pam, and it's buried in up to the neck in her front yard, and I guess it's filled with water, and then releases the water slowly. A beautiful old, probably New Mexico
Yeah.
method, probably.
Yeah, actually, yeah, Native Americans used it a lot.
Kate.
Pam, do you know the composters that are on the legs that with the spinning device? Is
Yeah.
there a place where they can be purchased locally? I'd like to buy it locally if that's possible and not online. Do you know places that sell them?
I don't exactly. I suspect that something like Home Depot may have them.
Okay.
But I don't. I mean, they're very common, but I just didn't make a search of where you can find them.
I'll look into it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. Also, it was wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very, very helpful.
And Martha put a note in the chat about a brand of the indoor composting machine that you might interest you.
It does.
Yeah, I had just recently somehow gotten on that company's email list somehow, and have really gotten a lot of emails from them with lots of videos with demonstrations. It's called Lomi, and
Lomi?
Lomi. I put it in the chat, and it shows, that the machine has different settings, and it showed it all full of, lettuce leaves and whatever, artichoke leaves and kitchen scraps. And then, after one setting, which was I think 6 hours, what it looked like was sort of rubble. It sort of looked like gravel. It was just a bunch of little pebbles. And they'd said, well, of course, this isn't the kind of compost that's like soil. This is the kind of compost that you could use as a mulch, or you could put this pebbly stuff in your green bin. It was already kind of 3/4 composted. But then after sort of 12 hours, it was this loamy like soil. It was sort of amazing, really. I'm actually trying to get my library to buy one so that we can use it for our teen and children's programs and stuff, and so I can personally use it.
Yeah, that's true. And then they could, you could show them the compost. They could touch it and feel it and all that kind of thing. Yeah. And actually, that's a good point about grinding up material. So composting goes much more quickly if you grind things up. At the Master Gardener demonstration garden in Walnut Creek, they have a machine that's like a wood chipper sort of, that they run garden waste, garden clippings into in order to put them in the compost bin. That's, you may not want to do that, but some way I also have a leaf blower that also mulches. So I can run leaves, for example, through there, and it cuts it up into little pieces, and then they go in the compost bin.
And where is the Master Gardener garden in Walnut Creek? Can you reference that?
Sure, I will. I don't have the address off the top of my head, but I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a wonderful garden. It is so impressive. And, they produce a lot of tons of food every year that they give away. And
their methods of yes.
Yeah.
They did a lot of this.
Yeah. All their cuttings went into compost.
Yeah.
Well, Pam, that was just so interesting. And if does anyone else have any questions for Pam, or otherwise we'll say thank you and um, um, that was just it was very fruitful. Oh, thank you, Anna. Anna has put the demo garden in the corner of Shadelands and Widget White.
We did. Yeah.
Wicket.
Thank you, Hannah.
Yeah, yeah. It is. It is.
I was
beautiful.
just there.
Yeah, I remember going there years ago, and then I thought, well, too bad this is in Walnut Creek because that's really not my usual circle of places to go.
Well, actually, yeah, I agree, you know, especially with gas prices at the moment. But some exciting news is that Master Gardeners are going to create a demo garden on the site of the old Pacific Oaks garden, which is on, I can't remember the street name, but if you go up Mosier, turn left on Novalier, the next street you come to, if you turn left, there's the entrance to that garden. It's on the site of the old school that they tore down. And it was a community garden for a few years, like 4 years or something like that. And they have left, and the Master Gardeners have an agreement with the school system now. And so we're gonna develop it. It'll take some time, but the plan is to put in sub-irrigation beds there for demonstration, and over time develop water collection systems, because there's no water on the site. So it'll be a good way to demonstrate those techniques.
That's amazing. You mean where Portola used to be? Oh.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Fong, question or comment?
Well, we need a field trip. Okay. I don't mind setting up a field trip to that Master Gardener in Walnut Creek. And talking about gas, I have electric, so we're not worried about that. Okay.
I know. I'm so envious. You know, I have a Subaru, and I've been waiting for the electric Subaru to come out. And then I just learned that their wait list is totally full for this year for them. I'm really disappointed.
Not really. Well, if you buy Subaru electric, it's about 25,000 more expensive than mine.
Ah, yeah.
Chevy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, the point I want to say is, you know, I can have 3 in my car.
Well, that would be a good field trip.
Yeah.
Thank you. That sounds great. Well, good. You know, I do have this little video that's very beautiful and relaxing. If people want to see it, it's about 5 minutes long. It's of flowers, Kate, so you'll appreciate it. But also, of course, you know, we've been on for quite a while, so please feel free to wave goodbye if you want to go. Or are there any other comments or announcements people want to share with the group? The presenters were all wonderful, and thank you so much for your hard work. It was just great. Well, maybe I will just start this little video because I think you'll like it. And let's see if I can make it happen. That's a question, Martha. All right. I got this from the Richmond Garden Club, who are a pretty rich bunch of people. I haven't tried to share in this way before, so I'm not positive you can hear, but there's music. Can you hear the music?
Yes. Seen this before? Not all the way through though.
Oh, what lovely flowers. Wow, so relaxing.
Gorgeous. Isn't that pretty? Yeah. Oh, so this is nice. It tells all the names of the flowers.
Beautiful. So soothing.
Wow, fascinating. How long it took each flower to be photographed. That was amazing.
I love how they called that the cast and crew were the flowers, you know. I thought that was very
It
nice.
was wonderful.
Good.
Cast and
Well,
crew.
thank you all so much. So, you know, on the plant sale, I hope to see lots of you there. And again, the hostesses might need help if you want to offer anything. And yes, take care of yourselves. And
You also welcome shoppers. You don't have to volunteer. You just come and buy.
yes, and tell
Love to have you as shoppers.
that's right, and tell your friends and neighbors. Yes, and for those interested, don't forget next week is our board meeting. Everyone is always invited to that. All right. All right.
Bye
Very
bye.
good. Thank you so much again,
Betty.
Pam and Joyce.
Bye.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you. It was wonderful. Good. And Kate, beautiful. Good job. All right. Bye-bye.
Everybody, thank you. Thank you.